Pivot tables are a super fun and engaging way of getting the most from your Excel data. However, in my experience, many users of Excel, even experienced users, find them rather daunting, but this doesn't need to be the case. Let me break pivot tables down for you into some easy to follow steps. Start by making sure you have the Excel pivot table exercise file open. What you're looking at is a very basic table of structured data. What I mean by this is data that's been organized into rows and columns. To ensure that pivot tables work properly, it's super important that your data looks organized, such as this one. Let's actually go ahead and select the data. And from the Insert menu here, click on Pivot Table. Once the Pivot Table pane opens over on the right-hand side, you can choose to either put the pivot table on the same worksheet as the data or a new sheet. We'll come back to this in a moment, but I tend to select New Sheet as this ensures that the source data won't accidentally be compromised. You'll also notice that Excel Online gives us some suggested pivot tables to start with. Now, going forward, you'll probably use this, but given we're just starting out our pivot table journey, I do want to show you how to create one from scratch. Let's go ahead and select New Sheet. And a new worksheet has been created in our workbook with the pivot table fields pane open on the right-hand side. This probably doesn't make much sense yet, but bear with me. Let's start by dragging the General Ledger Code field here into the Rows section of the pivot table. And then let's drag the field called Amount and drop it under Values. And there you go, you've created a pivot table. So even though our raw data back here on the pivot worksheet has two different cost centers, by creating a pivot table with General Ledger Code as our row field, the data has been summarized at the General Ledger Code level. Excellent work. You've just created a pivot table from scratch. Pivot charts are a super fun and engaging way of getting the most from your pivot table data. Have the Excel pivot chart exercise file open to follow along with me. What you're looking at is a basic pivot table of company by General Ledger Code. The data in this pivot table comes from the information in the pivot worksheet. Now, whilst this pivot table looks rather neat, I think it would look far more engaging if it was to be presented graphically. After all, a picture speaks 1,000 words. Let's create a pivot chart. Go ahead and click anywhere in the pivot table. It doesn't matter where. And from the Insert menu here, select one of the charting options. I'm just going to select a 2D pie chart. In a split second, a 2D pie chart has been created using the pivot table data. With the chart being linked to the underlying pivot table, this means that any changes we make to the pivot table will be automatically reflected in the pivot chart. So, for example, let's go and add the cost center as one of our axes. I'm just going to drag and drop it here. And now I'm going to select the drop-down box next to the General Ledger Code and remove the field. Essentially what I've done here is swapped out the General Ledger Code for the cost center. And as you can see, without having to make any manual changes to the source data range, our pivot chart has been updated instantaneously to now show the composition of expenditure by cost center. Great work. Excel Online has this incredible utility called Analyze Data, which appears here at the top right-hand side of our menu options. Analyze Data is an AI feature that is artificial intelligence. It scans your data and recommends insights and visualizations. And in my opinion, it's perhaps the most powerful enhancement that's been made to the Excel Online suite. Analyze Data will work fine on any data set, but the larger the data, the more recommendations that Excel Online will make. Let's put it to the test. Select anywhere in the data range and then click on Analyze Data. Excel Online will weave its magic. Depending on how large the data set is, this might take a few moments, so be patient. But once Excel has done its thing, recommendations appear over on the right-hand side. So say that we want to include this first chart here in our workbook. All we need to do is click on Insert Pivot Chart, and in just a few moments, it's been added to our Excel Online file as a new worksheet. Pretty impressive stuff. In just a few moments, we have used Excel Online's AI feature to bring powerful insights and visualizations to our data. And there's so much more that you can do here.